Hi, I'm Nikou, and the type of family that I grew up in was the traditional nuclear family, meaning my parents were married. It was me, my mom, my dad, and my little sister, and my grandparents lived next door, which was really nice because we got to grow up with them, and my parents got to have a lot of help and hands-on childcare. But it wasn't like a blended family where we all lived in the same house. We were just neighbors, which I think was kind of like the best of both worlds. It was a good experience. I think a positive of the nuclear family is that um, with it being more traditional, it's more stable. Having two parents in the household that did follow the traditional gender roles, I believe, was nice because it provided us stability and also was kind of a foundation to rely on. So my mom was a stay-at-home mom, which I think was a complete blessing because she would spend all of her time with us and we would get to do a lot of things together that parents who are busy working could not do. My dad made enough money to give us a comfortable life, which was a blessing. It was really nice. But I also know that nuclear families, both parents can work and they can make it work just fine. I couldn't really find too many negatives for this type of family, but as other discussions mention, I do think a negative can be kind of growing up with a biased view of other types of families, for example, homosexual families, especially growing up in more of a conservative household. We did hear a lot of negative things about that or about single parent families and just a lot of negative things. So I think a negative of growing up in a nuclear family was like we were biased towards other families. I can't think of too many negatives um, when it comes to this type of family. The only thing I can think of that other discussions also mentioned is that you kind of grow up wary of other families and not other types of families and not understanding them. So, for example, um, it can make you grow up with like a prejudiced kind of view of like single parent households or like um, households where the two parents are of the same sex. Um, which I don't think growing up with these kinds of views is good for a child, especially if they also happen to be LGBTQ. They could feel singled out or judged, not accepted, and stuff like that. So I think that could be a potential downside. I found polyandry to be very interesting because I grew up Muslim, and a lot of families around me were polygamous, not in my immediate family, but I had seen them around. And I had always grown up with this kind of notion that men are like biologically wired to be into multiple women and stuff like that. So seeing that there are cultures that practice women being with multiple men, I found that very interesting and um, like just culturally different. And I just found that interesting. And then another thing that I found really interesting was the fact that Hispanic households have the highest rates of high school dropouts, which was surprising to me because I thought those cultures really value education and stuff like that. I also found it very interesting that same-sex couples report higher levels of marital satisfaction. I'm not entirely sure the reasoning behind that, but I think it's because they're more in touch or in tune with the things that they like. And coming out is difficult, and I think they spent a lot of time thinking about what they like and what they don't like, which makes them more like emotionally available, if that makes sense. So what I found the most interesting from one of the videos was the interabled couple and hearing the other side of what it's like to be married to someone with a disability. I have an invisible disability and I'm married, and I know my husband deals with a lot and he's very supportive, and kind of hearing the perspective of someone being on the other side of that relationship was very interesting to me. And I liked that the points she made and how it is like being with a partner that's not like fully able, that's disabled, and her experience with that was interesting to me. Thank you.